Welcome back to the deep dive. So today it's a bit different, a little high stakes, I'd say.
Yeah, a little.
Oh.
Usually we're just talking, but today we have a mission. We are in full-on rehearsal mode.
We really are, and I'm a little nervous for you, the listener, because you're the one in the hot seat.
That's right.
Okay, so here's the deal for everyone listening. You are about to give a presentation. Tomorrow morning, you're in a lecture hall facing down, I don't know, 100 first-year philosophy students.
Fresh faces, probably a little tired.
Exactly, and up on the screen behind you is this slide deck, Building the Absolute.
It sounds intimidating, I know, but it's actually an amazing story.
It is. So that's our job today. We're going through this deck slide by slide, all 15 of them. We're going to give you the perfect, tight, maybe 45-second to 1-minute voiceover for each visual.
And the topic, German idealism. We're talking roughly 1781 to 1840. It could be really dense.
Understatement of the year.
But if you look at our source material, the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, you see it's really about a construction project.
A construction project.
Oh, the biggest one ever. This was basically the last time Western thinkers tried to explain everything.
Yeah.
I mean, God, nature, history, your own mind, all of it.
Within a single logical framework.
A single blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into it. First slide, I'm pulling it up now. The architecture of the absolute. Okay, so I've got these 4 portraits staring back at me. Kant, Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel. They look intense.
You're a very serious man.
So for these students, I can't just list off names. What's the headline here? What problem were they trying to
The
solve?
headline is The Bridge. You need to tell the students that philosophy before these guys was, it was broken in half.
Broken. How so?
You had the rationalists on one side saying truth comes from pure reason, from math, and then you had the empiricists saying, no, truth comes from what you can touch and see and measure.
And they didn't talk to each other. Not at all. It was a fragmented world. Science was over here. Religion was over there. The big idea they all shared was finding a first principle. One single absolute starting point to, weave it all back together.
So the pitch for slide 1 is, these guys were looking for the theory of everything.
Precisely. Which brings us right to the visual on slide 2.
Okay, yeah. The quest for a single principle. I like this image. It's a big stone arch, but it's broken. And someone's putting in the final piece.
The keystone.
Right. One side says rationalism, the other empiricism, and the glowing keystone in the middle is the absolute.
That keystone is the whole ball game.
The slide text mentions a guy named Reinhold, the solution. What's his role in this?
Reinhold is kind of the unsung hero of this whole movement. He looked at all the philosophical arguments and said, this is a mess. It's just a bunch of opinions.
They wanted to make it scientific.
Exactly. A real science of knowledge, a
What?
system with a capital S. He argued you have to be able to derive every single truth about the world logically from one single axiom.
That's the glowing keystone.
That's the keystone. If you find it, the arch stands. If you don't, the whole thing just crumbles.
Okay, high stakes. So let's look at the first attempt to build this foundation. Slide 3. Kant's modest revolution. The diagram here is a little weird. It's a human head with a grid over its eyes projecting onto a cube.
This is the beginning. This is Immanuel Kant. That grid over the eyes, that's his transcendental idealism.
How do I explain that to an 18-year-old?
Okay, tell them to imagine they're wearing permanent virtual reality goggles,
Okay.
and they can never, ever take them off.
Okay.
Kant's big move was to argue that space and time aren't things that exist out there in the universe. They're the software. They're the operating system running inside our heads. We structure the world with them.
So we're creating our own reality.
We're creating our experience of it. Look at the cube on the slide. The part we can see through the grid. Kant calls that phenomena, the appearance of things.
But the back half of the cube is in shadow. It's labeled noumena.
And that's the kicker. The Ding an sich, the thing in itself. Kant basically said, I can tell you exactly how the VR goggles work, but I can never ever tell you what the world looks like without them.
That feels so frustrating. He builds this entire incredible system just to say, sorry, we can't know what's really real.
That's why the slide calls it the limitation.
Right.
Kant was, he was modest. He drew a hard line and said, human reason stops here.
And I'm guessing the next generation wasn't too happy with that line.
They absolutely hated it, which leads us perfectly into the chaos of slide 4.
Yeah, the crisis of nihilism. This graphic is pretty dramatic. There's a big explosion labeled pantheism controversy.
You got to inject some drama here for the students. This wasn't some polite academic debate. This was a full-blown panic. A guy named Friedrich Jacobi stood up and basically shouted, if you follow pure reason all the way, you kill God. His argument was that a totally rational system is just a machine. A clockwork universe. It's deterministic. There's no freedom, no soul, nothing. Just gears grinding in the dark. He called it nihilism.
Nihilism, back in the 1780s. I always think of that as like a 20th century thing.
This is where it started. The fear that science and logic would just suck all the meaning out of the world. Jacobi said you have a choice.
Yeah.
You can have reason or you can have faith. You can't have both.
And this is what motivates the idealists. They have to prove him wrong.
Yes. They have to build a system that's both rational and meaningful. They have to save philosophy from the abyss.
Which brings in the first radical, slide 5, Fichte and the absolute I. This one's a wheel diagram with a huge letter I right in the middle.
Johann Gottlieb Fichte. He's the guy who just decides to cut the Gordian knot. Remember Kant's thing in itself? That reality we can never know.
The dark side of the cube.
Fichte says just delete.
He just deletes reality.
Well, he argues it's a logical contradiction. His point is, if we can't know it, we can't even talk about it being there. So for all practical purposes, let's just assume it doesn't exist.
Okay. But if you get rid of the outside world, what's left?
Just you, the I, the self. Fichte's whole system is called subjective idealism. The only thing we can be absolutely sure of is our own consciousness. So reality isn't something we discover. It's something we create.
That sounds a little self-centered.
It is radical. See the arrow shooting out from the eye? The slide calls it Tathandlung.
Tathandlung, that sounds kind of aggressive.
It means deed act. Fichte's point is that consciousness isn't a passive thing like a box that holds thoughts. It's an action. The I posits itself. It asserts its own existence. But to know itself, it needs a limit. So the I creates a not I.
The world.
The world, nature, everything else. Just so it has something to push against.
Like needing a wall to know you're moving.
That's a perfect analogy. The wall is just there to help the ego realize its own freedom and power.
So Fichte basically makes the human mind into God. But looking at slide 6, I'm seeing a DNA helix. Schelling and the identity of nature. I take it Fichte didn't pay enough attention to nature.
Not even close. For Fichte, nature was just a dead prop on a stage. Schelling, who is actually Fichte's student, comes along and says, hold on. Nature is alive. It's creative.
Hence the DNA visual.
Exactly. Schelling says it can't just be mind versus world. It has to be a partnership. He has this incredible line. Nature is visible spirit, and spirit is invisible nature.
Whoa. Say that one more time.
Nature is visible spirit. Spirit is invisible nature.
So they're the same substance, just in different forms, like ice and water.
Precisely. This is identity philosophy. The absolute isn't just in your head. It's the indifference point, where subject and object, us and nature, are recognized as one and the same.
That's actually very beautiful, very poetic.
It was. But poetry wasn't going to be enough for the final boss.
Slide 7. The boss battle. Hegel's spirit. And we've got a spiral staircase reaching upwards.
Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. He looks at Schelling's beautiful idea of oneness, and he just trashes it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He has this famous insult. He says Schelling's absolute is like the night in which all cows are black.
Wow. Okay, that's a sick burn for a philosopher. What does he mean?
He means it's just a blur. If you just say everything is one, you erase all the important distinctions, all the detail. You lose the struggle. Hegel says the absolute isn't a starting point. It's a result.
And that's the spiral staircase, the journey.
Yes, this is the dialectic. Probably the most famous idea of this whole presentation. Hegel's idea is that truth isn't static. It moves. It develops.
How does it move?
Through conflict. You start with an idea, a thesis. That idea runs into its opposite, a problem, an antithesis. And out of that clash, a new, higher, more complex idea is born, the synthesis. And that's the next step of the spiral.
So for the students, the big takeaway is that history isn't just random, it's actually going somewhere.
It's evolving, its spirit becoming self-aware. We're climbing towards what he calls absolute knowing. Okay, that clarifies the next one. Slide 8. Logic as the skeleton of reality. There's a simple wireframe cube next to this complex, glowing geometric shape.
This is a tricky one, but it's so important. Before Hegel, people like Kant thought logic was just the rules of our thinking, like grammar for thoughts, empty of content.
The wireframe cube.
Exactly. Hegel says, no, logic is the blueprint of reality itself. It's not just how we think, it's how the universe is.
It's kind of like the code in the Matrix.
That's actually not a bad way to put it. Hegel literally says logic is the study of God before the creation of nature. The structure of thought is the structure of being.
Which is the huge breakthrough on slide 9. Epistemology, we've got Kant's brick wall with a big red X on it right next to a wide open door.
This is the payoff. Remember Kant's wall? The thing in itself that we could never get to.
Yep, the ultimate mystery.
Hegel just walks up and kicks it down. He says, since the world is structured by thought, by spirit, and our minds are also structured by that same spirit, we fit, the mind is, in his words, at home in the weird. The slide quotes him, the rationale is the real.
That's the banner you have to hang in the lecture hall.
Yeah.
If you can think it rationally, it is real. There's no unknowable beyond. We can know the absolute.
That is just an unbelievable level of confidence.
It was the absolute peak of philosophical confidence in human reason.
Okay, so they've solved the universe, but what about us? How do we live? Slide 10, ethics. There's a single person on a pedestal for Kant, and then a whole network of connected people for Fichte.
Right, this is a really important shift for the students to grasp. Kant's ethics are all about duty. It's you, by yourself, figuring out the universal moral law in your head, the categorical imperative.
Kind of a lonely, solitary process.
Very. Fichte comes along and changes the game. He basically says, I can't even be an I unless you, another I, recognize me as one.
Intersubjectivity.
Exactly. My freedom literally depends on your freedom. Morality isn't just an internal rule I follow. It's a social contract. It's born in the space between people.
That feels incredibly modern, and it leads right into what is probably the most controversial slide, slide 11. The state is freedom. It's a pyramid. Family, civil society, and the state at the top.
You have to tread carefully here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of students will hear Hegel and the state and immediately think totalitarianism.
Right, that's the big accusation against him, that he was just a shill for the Prussian monarchy.
And it's a huge misunderstanding. Look at the pyramid. Hegel calls it ethical life. You start in the family, which is based on love, on feeling. Then you grow up and enter civil society. That's the marketplace, the economy. It's all about individual self-interest.
And it's chaotic.
Utterly chaotic.
Huh.
So the state isn't some tyrant imposing its will. For Hegel, the state is the synthesis. It's the higher community, where individual freedom and the common good are supposed to come together and be realized.
So true freedom isn't just doing whatever I want. It's participating in a rational, organized community.
That's it. The state is us, but organized.
Moving on to slide 12. Aesthetics. We've got a scale, weighing a statue of Apollo against a heavy book. Art versus philosophy.
This is really the final showdown between Schelling and Hegel. For Schelling, art was the absolute summit. He thought a great symphony or a painting could give you a direct intuition of the absolute in a way that dry philosophy never could.
A picture is worth 1,000 syllogisms.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Hegel disagrees. He talks about the end of art. Now, he loved art, but he saw it as a beautiful picture book. It's the first way the idea appears to us in sensuous form.
But eventually you have to learn to read.
Exactly. And for Hegel, reading is philosophy. He thought humanity had evolved to a stage where we need pure conceptual understanding. We've graduated from the art gallery to the library.
That feels a little sad, in a way.
It does. But he saw it as progress, the necessary path to absolute knowing.
But the project, it didn't hold. Slide 13, the fracture. The pillar is cracking apart.
Right. Hegel dies in 1831, and almost the next day, his followers start fighting over the inheritance.
And they split into right Hegelians and left Hegelians.
The right Hegelians were the conservatives. They took the rational is the real to mean, well, the current Prussian state is real, so it must be rational. Let's keep things as they are.
And the left.
They were the radicals. A young guy named Karl Marx was one of them. They said, no, Hegel taught us reality is a process, a dialectic. The Prussian state is just one moment that must be overcome.
Wow. So they used his own logic to call for revolution.
They famously turned Hegel on his head using his method to analyze class struggle instead of the history of ideas.
And the slide also mentions the rebels, Kierkegaard and Schopenhauer.
Yeah, the great dissenters. Kierkegaard looked at this massive, all-encompassing system and said, this is great, but it has no room for the single, passionate, existing individual. And Schopenhauer just said, you're all wrong. The world isn't rational at all. It's driven by a blind, irrational will.
So the whole grand project just shatters. Which brings us to slide 14, eclipse and revival. This is a graph that looks like a roller coaster. It just plummets in the 20th century.
That's the valley of death for German idealism. For a huge chunk of the 20th century, especially in the English-speaking world, these guys were completely out of fashion.
Why the crash?
Two big reasons. First, the rise of analytic philosophy thinkers like Bertrand Russell, who looked at this stuff and just said, this is meaningless, pretentious nonsense. Then, after World War II, people like Karl Popper explicitly blamed Hegel for creating the philosophical groundwork for totalitarianism.
They actually blamed him for fascism and communism.
They argued his glorification of the state in history gave philosophical cover to tyrants.
But the graph goes way back up.
It's the return. In the last, say, 30 or 40 years, philosophers realized we might have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. People started seeing that these guys were wrestling with problems about consciousness and reality that we are still stuck on.
So they're cool again.
They are very cool again.
Which brings us to our last slide. Slide 15, the legacy. It's the 4 portraits again.
This is your final word to the students. Your conclusion.
The text here says the grand system may have failed, but the questions they asked are the ones we're still dealing with.
Exactly. Nobody really believes we can create one single theory of everything anymore. The world is too messy. But they're questions. Is reality fundamentally mental? Is history rational or just random? What is the true nature of freedom?
We're still asking all of them.
Every single day. And that last line on the slide is the key. The I remains the center of the philosophical circle.
No matter what we discover, we're still the ones doing the discovering, from inside our own heads.
We can't take the goggles off.
Well, you know what? I feel a lot better. I think I can actually stand up there tomorrow and make this make sense.
You're going to do great.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, can I leave you with one final thought? Something to really mess with the students' heads at the very end.
Please, hit me.
Okay, so we've spent this whole time talking about their core idea. The world is structured by thought. The rational is the real.
Right. The structure of our mind matches the structure of the world.
So, if that's true, what's actually happening when we do science or philosophy? When we finally figure out a law of nature or the logic of history, is that just us figuring out the world?
I think so.
Or is it the world, the absolute spirit, finally becoming conscious of itself through us?
Whoa. So, we're the universe waking up and looking at itself.
If the idealists are right.
Yes.
We are the cosmos's way of looking in the mirror.
I am 100% ending my lecture with that. That is going to melt some freshman brains.
That's the goal.
Thanks for the rehearsal. This was incredibly helpful. And to you, listening, thanks for prepping with us. Good luck with your presentation. We'll see you on the next deep dive.